Welcome everyone. Thanks to all of you for joining this second episode of the Virtalis Reach webinar series, where we will deep dive today into collaborative XR. So welcome to our customers, partners, experts from many different parts of the world. We're happy to have you here. And today's session will be a very special one. We are joined by Jim and Tom from the Toro Company. I mean, both of them in one screen. Welcome, Jim. Welcome, Tom. And in
Hello.
light of today's theme, we asked them to explain how they are using VR to enable and foster collaboration. We have a packed agenda ahead, but before we get started, I would really like to introduce our guests and co-presenters for today. So first of all, welcome again, Jim, Tom. Good having you here.
Thanks for having us.
Let me start, Tom. With Tom, with yourself. I mean, you're engineering specialist, incredible number of years of experience. You've been with the Toro Company for 37 years. Started out in design, quickly moved into CAD support role in the 80s. You've been part of the technology CAE group since that time and involved in the evolution of CAD at Toro, from wireframe 3D CAD to solid modeling and into PLM implementations. And since the inception of and the introduction of VR, which happened almost 7 years ago, as I understood, you've been a driver of the VR implementation. So it's extremely honored to have you on this show and in front of our customers and experts around the world. But we also have James Lutz, systems engineer, working on VR for the past 4 years, coming from a mechanical engineering background, and able to bring the knowledge of what is important for the engineers to see and translate that into what the user needs to see in VR through the customizations. Jim helped spread the use of XR technology throughout the Toro Company and show the value that it can bring to many different areas and stakeholders. And we are extremely pleased to have you here. Of course, also welcome, John. Also welcome, Tim. I will do a brief introduction on your roles and backgrounds as well, both from Virtalis and let me take all of you with a bit of background before we get started and then dive deep into into this webinar series. So the webinar series basically got established around our Virtalis Reach Cloud Ready platform, which was introduced last year. And that program quickly found its way to the customers. And as you will also see today, and many of you are aware that Reach is opening a whole set of new possibilities, such as instant collaboration, which we will look at today. But our networks and customers around the world are quickly growing. And when we tested the idea of doing a webinar series for knowledge exchange, that idea was very well received. So basically, here we are doing a second episode where we do deep dives into the product, but also talk about key trends, pain points, how our customers are actually using our product. And we are catering to primarily two audiences. On one hand, the experts on VR and XR and innovation leads. We're also catering to business people around the world who like to understand what the value is and what the ROIs are. During these sessions, you will get unique insights, also on a product level, as sneak peeks into R&D. And but today, I mean, it's even more special, at least it is for me, when we have one of our customers also talking about their vision on collaborative XR. So, quick look at the today's agenda. This is basically part one, quick introduction. We'll get up to speed with collaborative XR. Tim and John driving that agenda. I mean, how does it look like? What are the use cases? And in part two, which will all happen in 60 minutes, we will have Toro share how they are using VR to enable and foster collaboration. They will also look back little bit in their history and plans and journey, and also look forward on what the dreams are, which are yet to come. So before I set the stage for today's event and introduce our topic of today in a bit more detail, I'd like to ask every one of you. This is an interactive event. Ask questions. Use the chat or question box. We're used to getting questions in between. I will filter them. We will filter them as a team, get them back to our panelists and get them answered. At the end, we also have a Q&A, so the more questions pop in during the sessions themselves, we can identify them and bring them back to the Q&A. So make it as engaging as possible. That's the intent of this session. It should be relevant for you. So keep us sharp and let us know what else we can elaborate on. Okay, very quickly on Virtalis, because not all of you know who we are. So we are a pioneer and global leader in advanced visualization, headquartered in the UK, and experts and offices, customers, partners around the world. Truly global company. I think we are primarily known by servicing the biggest companies in their industries who typically have very complex models. But we're also catering to more and more smaller and medium-sized companies. So would not necessarily say that those are over here, but I mean, it is fair if you look at where we are strong, where we have our edge, where we have our customers, that we are accelerating the industrial enterprise. And over the years, we have become the undisputed leader in the design review world. And we're also keen, if I look at all the registration, that we see so many of you from that domain also attending this webinar on collaborative XR. So while it's not a key topic for today, because I'm just showing some of the ROI numbers, our success is dependent on those numbers, on the value we provide to our customers. So we have various case studies. Some of them we can share, some of them we cannot share. But if anyone interested in understanding those numbers on a more detailed level, we are here, we can share that, and we are very happy to share more about that. Because today's focus is primarily on collaborative XR. But how important is it? How important is collaboration? And it may be an open door. Of course, it means how teams collaborate. It determines the success, viability of any organization. So collaboration is probably the most crucial part of running a successful business. But in our world, in the world of industrial enterprises, it's probably even more important. It's a matter of survival. So 4 weeks ago, we ran an industry meetup with our customers from the maritime and shipbuilding domain. We shared some powerful case studies, and one of them was about a shipbuilding company. And we have a number of customers, and one of them was about Seaspan, where they have 600 vendors, experts, designing, working in parallel, designing, engineering that ship, working across the supply chain. And it needs to go fast, and it needs to go well, because that ship has a lifespan of 30 or 40 years. So taking that all together in such a complex engineer to order world, you need an incredible game of collaboration. And if it doesn't work, that industry is in such a competitive environment, competing against low-wage countries. Mistakes will be deadly, and delays will also be deadly. But there's another thing. Let me take this one. There's another thing which is happening and which is related. And before I hand over to our next speaker, is that that's the theme of the hybrid workforce. And the header in this slide, basically stolen from Satya Nadella from Microsoft, they see this as the biggest trend around. So remote and hybrid working have become a global standard, and companies are now looking for ways to bring teams together in the most effective way. But how should they do it? Not everybody agrees. And let me show you the next slide. So Apple yesterday claimed, I mean, this is from yesterday, that in-person collaboration is crucial and essential. So in their discussion about going back to the office, yes or no, it is demanded for at least 3 days a week. They have to be together in person, because they said, and you can read an excerpt over here, that all those successful products, they were basically developed and created based on in-person work. The counterparts, Google and Facebook, they have more adopted a more remote work as a standard, or as you wish thing. But the thing is, getting back to what we're discussing today, if you look at VR and XR and what it can bring, it can actually marry those two things. So actually having hybrid teams and in-person collaboration, they're not mutually exclusive. They coexist together, exist at the same time. So think about it. Engineers, folks around the supply chain, they can meet, talk, look at models together at the same time. And this is a big, big thing for the industrial enterprise. So they need to rely on quick designs, innovation speed for survival. So today, closing this off, setting the stage, you will see some examples of how remote team members working in VR are solving issues, problems in a minute, what would otherwise have taken days, weeks, or more. So with that, as a introduction to all of us and also to our next speaker, I would like to move to Tim. There we are, Tim. So Tim, welcome. Welcome.
Thank you.
So while you are loading your own deck, so let me take a moment to introduce you, because I mean, you started with Virtalis 25 years ago, initially developing VR applications for clients. And at that time, Virtalis was relatively small. So you also got involved with system installations, presentations. I worked with a number of VR toolkits over the time. I had made your broad knowledge of systems and software for the last 9 years. You've been working closely with our customers, training them, but perhaps more importantly, helping them get the maximum out of the systems and the VR suites that we're running for them. I'd like to hand over to you and take us along, Tim.
Okay, thank you for the introduction, Dimitri, and welcome to everyone. I'm glad you could join us. First, as in always, we need to check. Dimitri, can you confirm you can see my screen, see me, and hear me clearly?
Yes, confirm.
Yes, all three. That is good. So, obviously, what I'd like to talk to you is about collaborative XR. And where we're going. So, what is collaboration? I'm going to ignore the more traitorous definition, but even if morally dubious, it's still people working together. So collaboration is when multiple people, organizations, groups come together to work on a task or to achieve a goal. And it's something we've done from the dawn of time, or 2001 for movie buffs in the audience. It's that understanding that by working together, we can achieve more. Collaborating allows us to share ideas, discuss, analyze, and look at problems from different perspectives and experiences. And we can collaborate physically because one person is not able to manage the task on their own. So when we talk about collaboration in XR, it's not a new idea. When I look back over my career, I see numerous examples where the value of collaboration has proved itself time and time again. So over 20 years ago, we developed a Tornado F3 maintenance trainer for the RAF. And it enables students to work on a full 3D model with over 450 LRUs that were fully interactive and behaved as their real-world counterparts. But what really stood out about this was also the ability to collaborate. So in the real world, the engineers need to work in pairs for many tasks. One will be external to the test equipment, and the other will be inside the cockpit operating switches and dials, etc. So this setup enabled the pairs of students to be able to work together virtually and communicate with each other. The instructor was able to attach to the view and see exactly what they were doing and provide additional instructions over the audio link. So whilst each student could perform the process themselves by jumping from internal to external views, the collaboration helped to build communication and teamwork. Moving forward a few years, BAE were using large projected walls for their design teams. They'd come together to evaluate the design for the Astute class submarine. And whilst this is a kind of more commonly used or seen form of collaboration, where it really came into its own was on the dock hall side. VR cabins were introduced to enable the fitters, the electricians, welders to access the same visualization. And using these VR cabins, they could all understand what the other disciplines needed to achieve before they could undertake their task. They could understand the bigger picture and how the work fitted into the build. But aside from that communication benefit, bringing the technology out of the specialist areas to the dock hall showed that VR wasn't the preserve of the specialist CAD team, and it could seriously benefit a business. As we step forward again, hardware's improving. HMDs, whilst still expensive, were beginning to deliver on the required clarity. And although HMD usage often had the view that it was isolating and single user, it didn't need to be. We developed a helicopter rear crew trainer that, whilst the visual quality and flight behaviour were important, the key for the training was the communication and collaboration between the pilot and the rear crew. If that communication fails, lives are at risk. So with the winch operator working within a physical framework of the helicopter, immersed in HMD, they were required to guide the pilot to their target, whilst ensuring the safety of the helicopter, the winchman, and those requiring rescue. So communication and teamwork is vital. But it's not just the more bespoke tools of the trade improving that helped push forward collaboration. Designs were becoming more and more complex, more disciplines involved, increased suppliers, customer requirements, teams spread across large sites, different parts of the country or even different countries. So network improvements enabled these disparate sites to connect and work together on vast data sets. Teams that needed to work together could quickly connect across the country, and this created a system that made decisions faster, that corrected problems earlier, reduced costs from not only travel, but through the improved efficiency. So the key has always been in communication and working together. And the technology has enabled us to take these next steps. It also demonstrated the need to expand out of the silos that were partially generated by the need for the specialist hardware. And bringing XR to the wider audience was key. So the visualization suites are a precious resource that are constantly used, but it's the key holders can be protective over their domain. But in 2018, we made the decision that we needed to break down the silos and make XR more accessible. And that's when we started to develop Virtalis Reach, designed to be that delivery platform to enable the user to access the data rapidly without the need for high-end PCs. And it is this accessibility that opens it up to the wider audience. So with the launch of Reach at the back end of 2019 began with a few select clients. And we did that so we could aim to help in developing a product that aims to solve industry problems. And coincidentally, one very big problem did arrive at the start of 2020, and this was in the form of COVID. So offices closed, people working from home, visualization suites gathered dust, and this had this impact on how teams worked. They weren't able to go to the Viz suites to work through their design, collaborate with stakeholders. Screen sharing, VR spaces, Zoom calls all took over, but couldn't provide that same level of collaboration and interaction. So whilst COVID instigated a greater need for these collaborative tools, it was something we were already addressing. And that's where the power of Virtalis Reach comes in. So Reach opens up your data to the wider audience. And this is 100% secure and controlled by you. So now it's easy to connect my data through a browser, no hardware limitations. To collaborate, I can simply send an invite to my colleagues, suppliers, clients, and they can join my session with a click of a button, whether they're at home, on site, or even walking the dog. So as long as they have a connection and access rights, they can see that data and collaborate. So they can step someone through a maintenance procedure, discuss those critical design issues, demonstrate to a customer or supplier. And it's the ease of connecting that means you can open up communication and discussion at the click of the button. So even if your colleagues are in a completely different time zone, you can collaborate asynchronously with threaded comments linked to the 3D models. But it's not just the simplicity of connecting to the data. We put a lot of thought into the user experience to ensure that it's easy for the end user. So this slide is a perfect example of why layout and interface are very important. And yeah, I've just thrown some images on there and it looks poor. But when you take into account that 50% of those people involved in projects may not have any experience in CAD or Viz software, it has to be easy. They need to be comfortable using that software, and they need to be confident when connecting, whether on the phone, laptop, or an HMD. It's about enabling people to become part of that discussion. So how does this benefit you? Well, decisions are made faster. There's no need to wait for a weekly design review. You can instantly connect and ask the question from supplier to end user. We can identify problems earlier. Immersing yourself in the 3D model gives that perspective and helps to analyze and clarify designs. You can share expertise quickly. If you have engineers in the field, you may need expert knowledge or guidance. We're improving communication. So without hardware limitations, teams become more connected and have a greater understanding. And we can invigorate innovation. By integrating stakeholders in the process, the expertise, differing perspectives, and real-world experience can drive innovation. So I'm just going to show you like a small video illustrating this. Following the input for the cold water, we're coming in from this part, and this is the new section here, is it?
Yeah, so this is the part we're expecting from our partner.
When are we getting the CAD for that?
Should be next week.
Right, okay. And are these pipes correct now for that new part, or is that for the old part?
No, that's for the new part, so this piping's all correct.
Right, okay, because we're missing an alignment here, aren't we? We're coming in too high.
Oh, yeah, we are. Those two flanges don't line up correctly.
Who designed the pipes? Can we get them in to
Yeah, so that was
discuss?
Dave.
Can we adjust these to fit with the chiller?
Hopefully, I'll just invite Dave to see if he knows.
Hey Chris, hey Tim, how's it
Hi,
going?
Dave.
Hello. So, question is, with the new pipe fitting coming in here, and these new pipes, we're coming in high on the chiller. Can we drop these pipes back, or will the new part, is that the reason we raised them up?
That is the reason why. The only issue is we had to do that because if we change the height of everything else, it'll be quite a lot of work to move all the pipework in the rest of the system down, even if it's just a couple of inches. Do you know if it's possible to raise the chiller at all?
I don't offhand, Chris, do you know?
I don't, but let me see if Andy is available and bring him in. So send him a link. See if he joins.
Hello, Chris. You after me?
Hi, Andy. Yeah, we just got a bit of an issue with the alignment of the pipes to the chiller that you designed. Tim, do you want to explain it for him?
Yeah, so we've got the new part where the intersection comes in,
As the pipe comes in, we're coming in high on the chiller here and on the
Right.
return. So can we raise the chiller up to fit that? Because otherwise it's looking like we're going to have to do a lot of work on the pipes.
So here and through there, yeah. I should think so. Let me run some analysis. I'll get the results in the next couple of days and get them to you. But I think that should be okay. Is that all right?
Yep, no, that sounds fine to me.
Great.
Thanks,
No
guys.
problems.
Thanks,
Bye.
guys.
Cheers
Talk to you
all.
again soon.
Okay, so excuse my obvious lack of knowledge on heat treatment plants. You can see the ease of connection to bring the people needed to make those decisions. So XR collaboration is not about the technology, but how we use it. It's about enabling communication to work better together. With more and more VR meeting spaces coming to the market, we have to use these well. Just showing PowerPoints in a virtual meeting space adds little benefit. The virtual classrooms with 3D models, whiteboards, web pages begin to build a richer, more natural environment. And as avatars and environments improve, face tracking will give more realism, but are we just heading down the road of hardware limitation again? It needs to be open and accessible to all. So you can see these new technologies pushing out the need for the more traditional visualization suites, but in fact, they complement them. They enhance the workflow, but most importantly, Virtalis Reach gives wider access to the stakeholders. By removing these hardware boundaries, you can connect instantly to make those smaller decisions quickly. And this frees up the time in the Viz suites when you really need to deep dive and when it really helps to be working face to face. You can bring experts out in the field to clarify and walk through tasks at remote sites, or you can communicate your product to the customer. So Virtalis Reach is an enhancement to how we collaborate, and it opens up visualization to a wider audience, bringing together the right people at the right time. So to look back to the beginning and our ancestors, collaboration makes us stronger. And with that, thank you for listening. And from one great ape to another, Dimitri, back over to you.
Yes, thank you. Tim, do you also have in the next slide? And so we will ask Tom and Jim to open up their webcams and join us or take over directly from their end. So from Minneapolis, isn't it?
Yep. Yes.
Excellent.
Start. So thank you for inviting us. Jim will get the slides going here. I thought I'd take just a quick minute to, for those of you who don't know who the Toro Company is, excuse me, we are an outdoor power equipment company with many of the brands. Jim, if you go back, you go back one there. The brands on the bottom, we're in the outdoor power equipment business, lawnmowers, snow throwers, that kind of thing, but as well as in the infrastructure construction business with our Ditch Witch division, and along with that, there's some irrigation divisions as well. So Toro was established, and here's a few products you can see on the screen. You know, the directional drill up there, the Ditch Witch, which lays all the fiber optic that's going in all around the world, and then a few different lawnmowers from. We're in the sports field and ground business as well, dealing with a lot of the major sports venues. Toro was established in 1914. We're located in Bloomington, Minnesota. We have approximately 10,300 employees, and we have 24 manufacturing sites in 9 countries. You can see we're about a $3.4 billion company. This gives you an idea roughly, you know, where the manufacturing locations are. So a global company as well. I just wanted to share our history, our VR history with you. And so we started by purchasing a DK1, Oculus DK1 off of eBay back in late in 2014, and started a small R&D effort off on the side to just see what it was all about, right? And so initially it was you got a Castle demo, if I remember right, and you used the keyboard to move around. There were no controllers and such. And so we kept at it, not full time, but just as we had time. Our group, our support group that Jim and I are a part of, we have the luxury of looking at technologies and new technologies and implementing technologies for the Toro Company. And so our manager likes to view us as incubators of things, and then implementers, and let it take off from there. So, and in 2015 is when we met Virtalis and started using their software, Visionary Render. Did several demos and worked through hardware and software things, and we did some internal in our Lindale engineering location, some design reviews, but we really started using it in a production sense early in 2017. And since that time, we've scaled up to from one headset at this location to about 18 headsets, 17 or 18 headsets at 9 different locations around the world. And so we've been updating the headsets as they come out. We've moved, obviously, recently to the Oculus Quest. We've used Oculus the entire time. And we early on, we did a lot of design reviews and demos, right? Customers would come in and we were showing and doing demos for different departments, trying to get people acclimated, get used to putting the headsets on, that kind of thing. And so today we average about 2 VR meetings per week, and VR meetings over the last 4 years. And actually, you know, prior to COVID in 2019, we had 200 VR meetings that we were a part of. And so the use cases we've documented, we have not documented a lot of metrics in terms of dollars saved and that kind of thing. We've never been asked to. Our leadership saw value in a couple of the examples, and I'll share one story with you, one use case. But we've documented about 35 different use cases. Now, one use case I would describe as a well-designed review. So we have a collaborative session with our manufacturing plant that does welding for us. And they're in a headset, and we have the designer or engineer responsible for the weldment in a headset here at our location. So that's one use case. Another use case would be we do hydraulic routing and electrical routing of all of our equipment. And so we'll have the electrical engineers, designers, they use VR to interrogate and look at things, and then route things in our CAD software. And then they all get together. One of the mechanical engineers will be in one headset and in collaboration with an electrical engineer and another headset, and they'll walk through the design, and the electrical engineer will explain why he did what he did in terms of the routing. So, and in terms of the metrics, you know, one use case early on that we we do what we call sightline studies as well. So we will put users in the operator position of the equipment. So picture a tractor with a cab. There was one project that they came to us and said, can we sit in the seat of the tractor in VR, and can we look through the windshield of the cab? We want the bucket, the front end loader, we want that in the up position, as high as it'll be. So in CAD, they set the model up the way they wanted to see it. And the reason they wanted to do this is they had 3 different designs for the cab, the windshield, how they captured the windshield. And so what we did was we brought those designs in, we sat the engineers down in VR, and we brought those 3 different designs in one at a time and let them sit in the operator position and look around and see if they could see what they wanted to, right? They needed to be. And it was very clear that there was only one design out of the 3 that met their criteria. In the past, we would have built prototypes that would have taken probably weeks to create the front end. We probably would have built 2 for sure, not all 3 necessarily, but we didn't have to do that. They moved forward with that one. So, and today, basically, where we came from was a small room that we started out in, and we've shown the organization the value. They've seen the value, and so they've rewarded us with a large room. We found that our participants that put in VR, it works best for them to walk around the unit. So we have a large room now that the participants each have a 12-foot by 16-foot area to walk around with, inside of the Guardian of the Oculus. And we have them side by side with the headsets suspended from the ceiling. And so we have collaborative sessions with all of our plants as well, and Jim will talk about that a little bit here. But just to describe our room a little bit, and so how our meetings normally go is we have the 2 headsets in the room here, and around the table, Jim and I are sitting. It's a big conference room, and we have an 85-inch screen here, and so other participants will sit around this table and look at the 85-inch screen to see what the people in VR are seeing, right? In our room, we actually have multiple monitors. But we've always said, how can we engage more of the participants? Because what ends up happening is, as the meeting goes on, maybe gets over, some of the extra participants at the table sit here and they'll put the headset on and look at things, and sometimes during the meeting as well. But we've always said it would be nice to get more of the participants involved, and I think that speaks to reach that's coming out. And I'll let Jim talk a little bit.
Sounds good. So kind of taking a step back, so how we found that VR and XR kind of helps with collaboration. So Tom kind of went into some of our use cases here, but basically, having our design engineers and our manufacturing plants being able to collaborate when they're physically not in the same location is huge. And being able to show models of prototypes instead of actually having to build a prototype and send it to that plant is really a huge benefit. And the fact that we can be in the same room with somebody and have our engineers point out what part they're physically talking about to somebody that could be thousands of miles away is really a big benefit that really kind of our management saw right away, and that's why we've been able to kind of continue to grow this. So yeah, and the whole thing too is that it brings these groups together earlier. So in the past we've had to build prototypes, like Tom was saying. We had to build prototypes of the 2 different cab designs, and now we can look at it in VR and make those decisions earlier and not have to do that. So the other thing is actually creating a full-scale perspective view and being able to walk around the model really helps out with not only manufacturing planning, how this is going to go down the line, but also with the engineers. They're looking at a 2D computer screen all day, and they can zoom in and out, and they don't really have a full sense of scale of the product they're creating. So by being able to look at it that way and being able to talk through it with other people in collaborative sessions, it really helps come up with some issues that they could be running into and not know about until they actually started putting it together. So and then another thing is being able to interrogate the model. So actually popping your head inside of a machine and being able to see wire harnesses routed all over the place and get different views that you really have to work hard for in CAD to create multiple sections and that kind of stuff. You can just pop your head right inside the model and get a much better view of how the product goes together. And that's really helped basically a lot of different areas throughout our company. So the value, and again, we've kind of touched on some of this here, but being able to accelerate the design process to make those higher quality products, and basically getting that voice of customer. We can get voice of customer and ergonomic feedback way before a prototype's even created. So it's not only Toro employees that are looking at this. So we bring in customers, and we bring in vendors of products that are going to be designing something for us, and we have them walk through our models and give us feedback on how the design is coming, what they like about it. Sitting people in a seat before anything's created is really a huge value. So that's also kind of a different type of collaboration that we've been seeing. Getting manufacturing involved as well, much earlier in the design for those design for manufacturing reviews and assembly, design weldment reviews, being able to see if a weld gun is going to fit into specific places. We can put a weld gun in somebody's hand and see the interference that it's going to cause. That's been huge for creating better weldments. And then obviously being able to see inside the model, and that's actually what you're seeing kind of in the slide here is, we can see all the wire routings and we can follow them and see where the interferences are, and we can do the same thing for hose routings. It makes us have a better model, and it makes us have a much higher quality product at the end of the day. So the future, where do we see kind of the future of collaborative XR going? And Virtalis has kind of mentioned this, and they've been striving towards this with their Reach product, but allowing more people to interact. So as Tom was saying, we have 2 people in our VR room today that are side by side, but they're both in headsets, and they're both not necessarily seeing each other. They're seeing their avatars, but they're not seeing the actual real person next to them. So being able to have more people interact with that digital model and being able to see what other people are pointing at and talk through some of the things that they're seeing is huge. And that's why we have this meeting room, is so that we have more people involved, but they don't all get to interact with the digital model. So that's one way that we can really see that XR can strive towards that goal. The next thing is spur of the moment design reviews. So we've done this a few times in basically our tenure here. But basically, when an engineer has some design problem that they really need to work through, and they need to get in there and pop their head into the unit and really see it. What'd be ideal is that if they had a VR headset at their desk and they were able to pop in and go into the model with very little effort. Today there is some pre-work that has to go into these scenes, and we have to import them from other software and things like that. But in the future, if they could just press a button, pop into the headset, see what they need to see, and then pop back out and do their design changes, that's really where XR can help out with those spur of the moment design reviews. And then lastly, making XR more accessible in terms of usability and computing limitations. So, we've kind of talked about hardware limitations a little bit in this webinar, but that's kind of a big thing when it comes to VR and XR, is that there is kind of an upper limit for whatever software you're running on computers. So being able to run a VR or XR review on a standard, engineering laptop or something of that nature, and not having to worry about, okay, does this have the proper graphics card for it, or do we have enough computing power to be able to run it? That's really where Reach kind of comes into play, is that it's not running off of that computer, it's running off of a server. So that's huge in terms of usability and getting around those computing limitations. And then, kind of in the future, we're hoping to get towards the point where XR is not necessarily an offshoot that you have to bring your CAD model into another place and go through that whole process of setting up a scene, but something like setting up a meeting similar to how you set up Teams meetings or Outlook meetings or something like that, and then being able to have a virtual environment and walk around it with your design in there is kind of where we need to get to, and make it easy in terms of that usability for everyone. So yeah, that's kind of all I got here. So we will.
Wow, that's an understatement, Tom, Jim. Thanks, thanks a lot, man. Sharing so many relevant insights and details on your story journey, and also the ambitions looking forward. We did have a number of questions. I didn't want to interrupt you at the time, but there's one which I would really like to share. So and maybe park the other ones for the Q&A. So before also we move to John. So the question was there a particular pain point or problem that you were looking to address? Well, let's say when you first looked at VR in 2014.
I would say, I think it was the technology, to be honest. It was the intrigue of the technology and figuring out use cases. I think we quickly learned the value of being able to, like Jim said earlier, see a design in full scale perspective and be able to walk around it. And I think that was probably what started us off, and ultimately, eventually, the collaborative side of things came in to play as well. That getting multiple people in there, and the technology as a result here at Toro anyway has gotten our manufacturing people earlier in the process, has gotten them involved, and I think it's really due to the technology.
Understand, right? Thanks a lot. So and also I think it's quite impressive to hear from you. I mean, running on average 2 VR meetings a week. I mean, I would be interested to share those benchmarks as well in a customer forum and talk with other companies as well, how they run it, do it. But for the last 4 years in a row, I think that's you can safely say that it's been very well embedded in the organization. So thanks. Please stay with us for the Q&A. We have a couple of more questions lined up, and so we're waiting to view John's screen. I will do a very brief intro because, in my opinion, John doesn't need a lot of intro. He's been a regular speaker on this show. He's one of the visionaries, product managers of Reach, key member of the team. He started his career as an engineer, aero and fluid dynamics, and he moved to software product development almost 10 years ago. John is managing our software product lines, working closely with customers, understanding their requirements, and embedding that in our on our roadmap, global roadmap, and which is really driven by customer demands and who we want to be and who we want to serve in the future. So back to you, John. Thanks a lot. Welcome, and take it on. Thanks. You are muted.
There's a fine for that, I'm sure.
You're back. Fantastic.
Thanks very much to Jim and Tom for that. They've teed the subject up wonderfully, that background from 2014 to today and how it's evolved in Toro really sums up very nicely where we're going with collaborative XR more generally, but specifically with Virtalis Reach, where the motivation very much is to address the problem. How can I see this, which is where perhaps things were in 2014 in the case of Toro. Different organizations will have come to that point at different times, to how can we see this now? And that's a statement that covers a lot of ground, because seeing it now has huge implications for what and how we connect with the organizational systems at the back end, how we authenticate users, deliver content securely, and ensure that now isn't something that has to be caveated with lots of concerns about devices and the technology you have to hand at that point. And so what I'm getting at is we have this mantra in Virtalis of effortless visualizations, and the reason that's so important to us is something that Jim and Tom were discussing at the end of their slot. They need to make sure that XR is something that's accessible in a more ad hoc manner. So the types of interactions that Tim was illustrating in the video he showed in his presentation is actually a practical reality, that you can access visualizations in a hardware agnostic fashion and do so performantly, and send visualizations that are context sensitive so that they make sense to someone without any preamble. The manufacturing engineer knows why they're getting the visualization they're sending them. The customer knows why they're being presented with a particular view that they are. And we also want to make sure that this is something that is routinely and securely available. So effortless visualization is something that we take very seriously. It's something that is a concept that informs the design choices we made in Virtalis Reach in particular, and why it's relevant to talk about Reach as the last session in a session on collaborative XR. So I'm conscious of time, so I was going to quickly dip into the products. I'll not do that this time. There will be more webinars where I'll do more of a show rather than tell session. But just so I leave time for questions at the end, I'll buzz through this. To summarize, Virtalis Reach it was launched towards the end of last year. We've now got a web viewer platform which allows for the secure distribution of visualizations to any device. We've got a unique way of rendering, which means that we're not backloading the hardware requirements to the server, so you don't need a GPU and heavyweight infrastructure to drive this. You control the access to the platform, and we take very seriously how we connect to the organizational systems that probably are the bedrock of the way you work day to day in an engineering organization. So PLM systems, for example. So that's where we are now. If we look at a horizon, and when I'm talking about horizons, this is such a vague product managery presentation, but I am thinking sort of 12 months here. We're not talking aeons away. And when we look where we want to get to, we want to enhance and develop on that initial launch primarily. We want to get to the point where we're a functional XR review and training platform, and I believe that's where we're touching upon right now with the current release. But we want to build upon that and become the knowledge management and sharing tool, or at least a knowledge sharing tool in organizations by choice. So we want to become a cross-domain visualization platform. So what that means in the medium term is being able to handle different technologies such as point clouds. We need to be able to manage immersive interactions. So that scenario Jim was talking about, when an engineer puts on a HMD on the fly, they can begin to interact and work with an on-the-fly design. We want to build up our automation suite. So we take more use of the templates we've already got in place to make sure that increasing your use of XR isn't being held back by the requirement to do lots of manual pre-processing Engineering and innovation is very much a moving feast. We can't expect our users to spend lots of time preparing visualizations for consumption. It has to be something that happens automatically, so that the manual effort can go into preparing richer materials, best practice, and scaling within the organization. And when I look slightly further afield, so like I said, in and around 9 to 12 months, we want to remove questions around visualization scale altogether. That's been something of a unique selling point of Visionary Render. We're already somewhat there with Virtalis Reach. We know what we need to do to make it true of Reach as well, and we're actively working on that right now. We want to serve different users, so cross-domain visualization will mean we might want to serve these visualizations up in a different way, and that could be anything from a specific training client type to something which is dedicated to serving the types of immersive facilities that are so important for immersive visualization face-to-face. What does that mean for the remainder of this year? Some of the work we've got underway or is imminent. First and foremost, comments. Collaboration doesn't have to always just mean being real time in a visualization with a colleague. It can mean passing feedback back and forth, something that's very important with distributed teams, particularly if it's an internationally distributed team where time zones are an issue. And so the comments feature is something you should expect to see from us very soon. I've mentioned that we've, in a previous slide, that we've already got a PLM, a product lifecycle management integration with Teamcenter, with Windchill. We're now working on an integration with Siemens Teamcenter. Intelligent decimation. What I mean by this is those of you who are familiar with visualization technology will be familiar when we talk about triangle counts, effectively a measure of the complexity and the size of the scene. Part of making sure that Virtalis Reach can handle humongous scenes is making sure we use our triangle count effectively and efficiently. And we've got an enhancement based around a more intelligent approach to decimation, which will be forthcoming this year as well. And finally, I'm always at pains to talk about XR as the technology that we are invested in with Virtalis Reach. And we've done our first basic implementation with the Microsoft HoloLens too, so expect to see that this year as well. All of which is about making better use of existing resources, lowering the barriers to entry, and making sure that Virtalis Reach can become that method of knowledge sharing just as a matter of choice, by a matter of convenience. So with that, I'll pause. I apologize that it's been a lot of PowerPoints. I hope not too much from me. Certainly, I think the content to this point is more than made up for that. And I'll look forward to showing you some of those features that I've just been describing in forthcoming webinars. Thank you very much.
Yes, unmuted. Thanks, John. Thanks a lot.
Welcome.
Fantastic. So in the meantime, I would request all the participants to please share more questions in the chat or the question box. So we have a number of questions lined up. Can I take the presentation back? So let me share the Q&A on. So 1 second. See if we can get our window back. Yes, fantastic. Yeah, I prefer to start with Toro. So it's a question on AR, and how do you see AR playing any kind of role for your use cases in the future? Can you share your views on that?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, the way we have kind of thought of AR is that, well, to date, a lot of the software that we've been playing around with in AR required a lot of model decimation and a lot of pre-work. So that's why, you know, we've been focused primarily on VR. But obviously in the future, we are definitely hoping to get some sort of, I mean, the goal would be to have, you know, a conference room like this that we could all have a head mounted device and all be looking at the same model and be able to interact with it. So AR in the future is definitely something that we're looking into. The problem is, you know, getting the software to collaborate with and getting the models to the right, you know, being able to work in certain headsets is very difficult at the moment. So definitely need some hardware and some software advancements to be able to do that. But we do definitely see that, and we see the benefit of that, and something that we have been looking into.
Excellent. Thanks. Thanks for the insights. Fantastic. So another one. I mean, Tim, a question popped in during your session. It's about one of the case studies about the RAF and the BAE. If they had a clear understanding of what they needed at the time, or were you or other team members involved in basically figuring out what the deliverable was meant to be?
Yeah, so I guess when we look back, they obviously had, you know, when we look, say, at the F3 trainer, they obviously had an idea of the requirements, you know, to be able to train, you know, the whole setup for each of the piece of kit and so on. And you know, the option really was 2D, or cost-wise, they're looking at like the high-end graphic stations. So they knew what they wanted. It was just getting the capability to do that, and for the cost of the time. So a lot of that was down to, I suppose, when we look at how we actually put it together to work on the standard workstation, you know, the 486s at the time. A lot of it was like from our side looking at how we could achieve what they needed to have that 3D model and the full interactions and the full workings. And so we had to really kind of like sort of work very smart with the data and how we could understand how to put it together and implement it. And again, you know, it's the same almost with the loading up with BAE with the ships and so on, loading up their entire data. So it's always been about working smarter rather than kind of, I suppose, throwing hardware at it. Yeah, paying the money, extra graphics cards, extra this, is basically looking at how we can cleverly work with that data. And that, I think, is something like how we, you know, we move with Virtalis Reach. How we're looking at that is, again, let's, rather than throw money at the high end, GPUs, CPUs, all this, it's how can we work with this cleverly to make it work on, as we say, any device, you know, to sort of low end people's phones and so on. So I think that's, yes, we obviously had to take into account everything they were after and what they needed, and, you know, try and address that. So yeah.
Excellent. So I probably have to disappoint some of the folks who asked the question. I'd like to close with a final one. It's a very open one. I don't know how difficult or easy it is, but I will point it to John. So it's about, can the collaboration work on any device? So it's that's yours.
I'll take that question at face value. So it's not about Reach specifically. Can collaboration work on any device? I think what Virtalis have demonstrated in the case studies Tim's talked about, and others we're familiar with, is that yes, it fundamentally, the hardware doesn't need to be a limitation. What we're doing is putting effort in to make sure that you can get even more out of what you've got. But focusing on the user and what the use case is will almost always get you to the right answer, no matter what you've got in front of you. I'm pretty sure now people wouldn't believe you could do what was achieved with the F3 trainer on a 486. I'm sure some of our developers might weep if we asked them to do that, but we proved it was possible.
Excellent. So let's, it's 6:04, so let's close this session together. So thanks to all the speakers, especially Jim, Tom, joining us today. But even more important, I mean, as important, to all of you around the world joining this session. and engaging with us. I mean, we have at least 5, 6, 7, 8 questions in the box unanswered. So we promise to get back to you as well, share it with the team and the relevant members. We will be doing more exercises like this, webinars, customer meetings. So stay tuned with us. Follow us. The best thing to do is to follow us on LinkedIn. You will find blogs, webinars, and everything which we would really like to get engaged on that page. So for now, thanks a lot, Jim, Tom, and the team, and we'll see you around next time. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you all. Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Tom.
You all.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.